What's up, y'all? It's your girl Cornelia back with another episode of Black News, a podcast where we break down current events, hot topics, and local stories involving Black people. Now let's get into it. Y'all, for a minute, I thought I was going to have to end the podcast. Hello, welcome back. It has been a journey these last 2 weeks. I thought that I was going to have to end this podcast. If you are a consistent listener, or even if you're not, for the last 2 episodes in the last 2 weeks, it has been really chaotic with the releases of this podcast. And listen, I'm not superstitious, but I was starting to I was starting to lean that way because with the 200th episode, mayhem started. Okay. I won't let I lay this. Okay. Yes. All up until yesterday, I was like, I might have to end this. I don't know if I have the ability even more. Why? Each episode has been significantly delayed with releasing. I usually release this on the podcast apps on Thursday. It gets put up on YouTube on Sunday. I've been late consistently. My assets, meaning the intros, outros, the sounds, the music, weren't added. Why? Because for some reason, I told y'all this on last week, and y'all probably didn't even have time to listen to the last episode by the time I'm recording this or dropping it because it came out so late. I was not able to add any of the external assets. But even when I removed those, y'all, I could not export the talking. Exporting means download it and then upload it back up to the podcast hosting sites. I couldn't even get the podcast out. At one point I stripped everything down. It was just some talking, no sound, no noise, nothing, just words. Y'all, I couldn't even post that. I had to reach out to tech support. Y'all, it took tech support a week to get back to me. I'm not even going. I was looking for other podcast hosting platforms. I, I was asking people, child, I don't know what happened. And I finally was able to get it posted. Tech support responded. But if y'all listening to this and it's late again, or if it don't sound right, whatever, hey man, I don't know how much longer I got. I have I don't got a lot of listen, I don't got a lot of time to be doing the most because it has been an ordeal. I literally edited the last episode, not the one before this, but the last one 3 times. Y'all, child, this the devil. You know, the devil sometimes be popping up and he attacks in areas where there is potential to thrive or there is some extra where the spirit lives. Okay, I don't know what. Hey man, it was the devil, but we back. I'm hoping for the best, but if this happens again and y'all get this episode late, I don't know what to tell you. We're gonna have to see. TBD. But with that in mind, starting the podcast off this week in January, we celebrate the legacy of Martin Luther King Jr. And this, I have a love-hate relationship with this holiday. And the hate part comes from social media, not from Martin, what he stood for, what he did, what he means to Black people, Black culture, Black civil rights. Not that at all. Y'all know me, and y'all know we respect people who have done the work and who was out here because everybody like to romanticize what they would have done. I would have been. If I was out there, if I was back in the day, I would have been. You wouldn't have been nothing doing nothing. Maybe, 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 maybe. But Martin, for a fact, was out here risking his life, getting death threats, attacked by the Alphabet Boys, and was assassinated in his 30s. That man he was a young man. Legacy, long lasting, right? But when I say the hate part, and again, this might be a repeat. Y'all know I be saying stuff over and over again. I be waiting in the wings on social media who for people who be up here trying to front like they know the real Martin. Mhm. Like they like they like they align with it. Ooh, you been hating all year. Mhm. You been on the wrong side of history for the last 10 years. Yes, you have. And now all of a sudden you posting I have a dream. We wish we could be more like Martin Luther King. You don't know what you talking about. I be waiting in the ring. You know, I be waiting in the ring for that Alphabet Boys to post that tweet talking about we honor the legacy. Yeah, you talking about the same organization that was leading up to COINTELPRO? That you y'all. Ugh. However, all that aside, the way things are going, I feel like Martin Luther King Jr. And he's never lost relevance and importance, right? Everything he's done and fought for, and everybody who was a part of the civil rights movement, SNCC, the students, freedom riders, people at the city council, all nobody ever lost their power and their vigor. But I feel like right now, with the way this country is in a downward spiral, looking back at Martin Luther King is more important than ever. It's it's y'all. And somebody broke it down on social media, and I wish I saved this clip. Maybe let me look and see if I saved it. It was this woman talking about how in reality we always talk about civil rights, and since the Civil Rights Act passed, we maybe had 50 years of freedom. She broke it down from after enslavement, considering Reconstruction, what happened during Reconstruction, up until now. We've only, as Black people, only had 25 years of quote freedom, which puts all of this into perspective. Let me hold on. Let me see if I can find this, child. Y'all, I'm not finding it. Dang, I wish I would have saved it. I don't know why I didn't save that. Anyway, with that in mind and this new uncharted territory for our generations that's happening right now, it is so important to really look at that entire time frame of Reconstruction to right now. Think about the steps that were taken bit by bit by bit by bit over 60, 70, 80, 90 years, and the little things that people did over time that stacked and stacked and stacked and led to the passing of the Civil Rights Act and got us up to this point, even though it wasn't perfect. It wasn't perfect. We can talk about how Martin, after the fact, said he regret leading his people into a burning building, all that. We know all of this. But I'm saying it is now time for us to consciously think about what we as the individual and we as the collective are currently doing, are prepared to do, and will do, with the mindset that over time we're going to have to keep adjusting, keep being flexible, and keep reassessing as time goes on. Because, baby, it's getting real out here. And somebody like Martin and his legacy, while things aren't entirely the same, I think it's good to reflect on the fact that that man was only in his mid to late 30s. He probably was terrified. You could play clips of his last speech, his last sermon. You can't tell me Martin, he knew it was about to be over. He knew the clock ran out. You can hear it in his voice. You can hear fear, you can hear frustration, you can hear hope, passion. You hear all of this. And that man was able to do everything that he did with the help of others. Because everybody ain't going to be Martin. Everybody ain't going to be Malcolm. Everybody ain't going to be Angela Davis. Everybody ain't going to be Asada. Everybody ain't going to be damn Huey P. Newton and Eldridge Cleaver. Everybody ain't going to be that. But there were so many people around. There were so many stepstones. There was that first wave of Black people who joined the United States government and was voting right after enslavement. There was that there was people documenting lynchings across the country. Shout out to Fannie Lou. There were people documenting and delivering the news and messages and telling people what was going on. Booker T and them, WEB, Frederick. You had all of these people, Zora, Jane, like everybody was doing a part. And I was just reminded of that yesterday, thinking about Martin Luther King Jr. So, with that in mind, yeah, I just think this is a good time of reflection. And I know as Black people, we have been called because I told y'all, I feel like, I think because we are so, whether we realize it or not, I think we are just a natural spiritual being and people. And it is no coincidence that we all felt the need to do the same thing and stand back a little bit, right? There's no coincidence. But what I'm feeling now and I'm noticing now, people are also starting to have conversations about, okay, we not gonna be on the front lines. Other people got to do that. Numbers wise, you got the numbers, baby. Y'all got the numbers. Okay, now what's the network, right? Are we going? Who gonna set up um, an alert system, right? If somebody in your community, if the alphabet boys walking around camouflaged up in your community, how are you going to alert your neighbors to stay inside and be safe? If people can't leave their homes and go get food, are you willing to do the grocery shopping and deliver food to those people in need? I saw people, and we're going to get into this in the next segment, in Minnesota who are outside waiting, outside of the detention center, waiting to pick people up who were randomly dropped off in the middle of nowhere after they were released. No clothes, no shoes, no nothing, no cell phone, no documents, and take them back to their homes because otherwise they would freeze to death in the Minnesota winters. You know what I'm saying? What are we going to, as an individual, do? Because every little piece stacks and stacks and stacks and stacks, and it matters. So yeah, let me know your thoughts about the legacy of Martin Luther King and how you're feeling right now, considering everything that's happening within our country present day. Also, before real quick, I love how Bernice, there's somebody pointed this out, and it is true. Bernice King went off. Dr. Bernice went off on people. She went off on y'all a couple years ago because she got sick of y'all posting the flyer of Martin Luther King with the gold fronts at the party with a chain with Tupac, the airbrush Tupac. She ain't like it. She said, "Okay, enough. We didn't see as much as we didn't see that much this year. So y'all listen to Dr. Bernice because she's sick of y'all. Okay. Appreciate, thank you so much. Do not, please, let's not piss Dr. Bernice off. Okay. But anyway, let me know your thoughts about it. You can find me at Cornelia on social media. So one thing that I talked about, and I'm going to talk about this, but a specific event or happening as it relates to this, the Alphabet Boys are in Minnesota. They are still there. And we know that mainstream media has been infiltrated. Let's just keep it a bug. Okay. Let's keep it a bug. You got network heads who are afraid to talk about administration or people, specific people. You have a whole network with CBS that has been bought out by by right wing leadership, if you will. They even shutting down 60-minute episodes from being aired because they don't like how it portrays certain people. We are now in an era of state sanctioned media. Luckily, I'm on TikTok where while a lot of it is being censored, some of the updates from people in Minnesota are cutting through. It's not a lot. Y'all remember back in the day with Twitter how if you wanted to know what was going on in Ferguson, If you wanted to know what was going on with George Floyd, Mike Brown, Trayvon Martin protest, Tamir Rice, what was happening on the ground, you could go to Twitter before it was infiltrated and get the news straight from the people. That's what it was for. You kind of could get that with TikTok a little while ago, but now not. No, that's those days are over. Definitely not with X. No platform is giving us the news. It's to the point where a lot of people within this country are watching BBC and Canadian news channels to get actual reporting on what's happening. We don't even know what's happening in our own country. But there are people within Minnesota who are reporting on citizens and telling us what's happening. They saying school shut down. They doing virtual learning, not just in Minneapolis, but surrounding cities that are 2, 3 cities over. There are, if you ride up and down the streets are empty, but there's like abandoned cars that are pulled off to the side, cars still running, doors open, where they're saying that people have pulled out of those vehicles by the Alphabet Boys and taken into custody. We saw a report of a man of Asian descent, I believe. I forget which country specifically he's from. U.S. citizen was pulled out of his house. They pulled him out of the shower. He was only able to put on boxer briefs and house shoes, dragged him into ICE custody in the freezing cold just to realize, oh, you're right, you are a U.S. citizen. Oops. You know what happened when they shot Renee. You know they're terrorizing this city, which, as we stated, this is just a practice run of what is likely to come. But for this specific segment right here, I want to shift the camera over to Don Lemon. Don Lemon, y'all know, like Don was on CNN, got fired. Since then, like him, Joy Reid, and others, they have now become independent in their journalism. Don has his own network. He has news shows multiple times a day, is on social media, has over 1 million subscribers on YouTube. He does man on the street interviews for the last however long, maybe year or less. He is going to different locations and reporting live on the scene. Child, during the gridlock in DC, it was something specific. Child, they done let Don into the congressional cafeteria. Like he in the field. Well, this past week, he said, you know what? We're not getting accurate reporting from what's going on. I'm going to Minnesota. Everybody like, bet. Great. Great. Because at least whether you like Don Lemon or not, and I personally like Don Lemon, I'll be watching the show. Y'all don't be watching news no more, but I'm gonna watch Don just to get a quick snapshot of what's going on. Move on with my day. At least you know he gonna try to talk to people on the street. You gonna see people's viewpoints, whether you like it or not. And people are open to talking to him. Some, because they be some who they be cutting up. Well, Don was on the ground reporting firsthand, talking to protesters. And let's not call it a riot. These are protests. Riots are happening with what happened after the cops who almost beat Rodney King to death. What happened when they were acquitted. That's a riot. These are protests. Please. He's talking to protesters. He's talking to veterans, people who were put in custody, people who have friends and family in custody. He talking to all kind of people. Well, Don ended up right on the scene where protesters found out allegedly, that a pastor of a specific church was an ICE field like leader. Your pastor works for them. Now, I don't claim to be a Bible scholar, but I know enough about Jesus and his teachings to know that he would not be on board with what's happening right now. I'm willing to bet he wouldn't like it. So people found out that the pastor was doing this Child, the protesters showed up at the church and went into the church. Don Lemon was on the scene interviewing members of the church. Some of them were like, this is wrong. You shouldn't be able to come into the church. It's illegal. It's actually not illegal. If even though the church in Minnesota is a private property, it's a public space, so it was not illegal to go into the church. People are also saying that he was leading the quote riot. He was not. He happened to be there and was interviewing people about the situation, but he was on the scene. We're seeing this. He is reporting on this on his platforms, his independent platforms. Child, the people in that house on the East Coast got wind of it and now came out and said they are planning to prosecute this man. And they cited the Ku Klux Klan Act of 1871. Y'all, get the fuck out of here right now. Get all the way out of here. Now, before I read, because I had to be like, yo, what is this? This is why. This what is what when we think about history and we look at um, like revolutions or times where people were fighting for rights and equality, all of these things, journalism is a major part of the movement. And when you cannot control the person giving the information to the public, that threatens people who don't want you to see what's going on. They don't want you to know. They didn't think that people were going to be watching. They thought they were just going to be able to terrorize people and put them in detention centers and ship them out the country, whether they U.S. citizens or not. They thought they were going to be able to do it in peace. They knew they could. They knew the mainstream networks weren't going to try to report on it because they were threatening them with lawsuits and to shut down their organization. But with independent journalists, you can't fire me. You can't shut down, you can't shut anything down because I deliver right to the people. And that is very threatening. It also doesn't help that it's a black man doing this because you know the people hate black people. They hate the black skin. They hate the black skin. Some people be hating it. Hence the racial profiling when people get pulled over by the alphabet boys. But this type of reporting or situation is powerful because it empowers other people to do it. And by attempting to prosecute someone and to have the federal Department of Justice come after one man, they're hoping that it signals everyone else to shut up and not even try it. Because who has the ability and the resources and the legal counsel to be able to fight the government? Not probably five people. But luckily for Don Lemon, he know a lot of people. And I was watching and been tuned in so far what's going on. And baby, when I tell you them lawyers on standby for Don, baby, I'm telling, listen, this right here, and I'm saying this as, I'm not saying Don is like the ultimate beacon of like journal. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying this situation right here and how it's handled and how people stand up to this will dictate and cause a domino effect in either direction within the coming weeks and months. People need to see independent journalists fighting back because if they are allowed to be sidelined, everybody else gonna follow suit. People are followed. People do what they see. And we are right now not at a time where we can afford people to be quiet. We need to know what's going on. We have to find a way to get information out and to inform people and to let them see what's going on. We could take it all the way back to Martin. One of the strategic tactics for the civil rights movement and people who were involved was to get on camera so people across the country can see how people were being treated. Because it's one thing for you to be in on the ground and know, like, dang, they out here beating us up. We getting beat over the head with hoses, dogs. But for someone who is states away, they hear about it there. That's not happening. I heard that was a rumor. That's fake. No, that couldn't be. They wouldn't do anything like that. Oh, they wouldn't? Turn the camera on. Turn the camera on, get the news out there, and watch people getting beat up on the Edmund Pettus Bridge. Watch the fire hoses get sick on them. Get the cameras and report how y'all blew up or ran off the road or shot up one of the buses full of freedom riders. Look at this picture in the front page of the newspaper of you pouring hot coffee on a young Caucasian girl's head. Show this. We need independent media. So I'm just pointing this out because, again, this is major. And so I'm going to read a quick article just so in case y'all don't know about it. This is the NBC News. It said the title, DOJ Civil Rights Chief blasts Don Lemon for covering anti-ICE protests inside church, vows charges against protesters. It says, the person's name, I forget, I don't know how to pronounce the name, and I don't want to get flagged because they be flagging. It says that nobody should think in the United States that they're going to be able to get away with this after the anti-Alphabet Boy protesters halted Sunday services at St. Paul Church. It says the Justice Department will pursue charges related to a protest in a church in St. Paul, Minnesota, Assistant Attorney General said Monday, specifically calling out ex-CNN journalist for his coverage of the event. In an interview with conservative influence Benny Johnson, the Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights said journalism is not a shield from a criminal conspiracy. Don Lemon himself has come out and said he knew exactly what was going to happen inside that facility. That's a lie. The Benny, she said on wherever she was, he went into the facility and then began, quote unquote, committing journalism as if it's some sort of shield from being an embedded part of a criminal conspiracy. It isn't. Protesting is not illegal. Let's stop there. She did not confirm whether the Justice Department will pursue charges against Lemon in particular. But then at some point, I forget who it was, don't quote me, quoted the Ku Klux Klan Act. Let me read this. Now, let me say this. I hate when you Google stuff now and they give you the AI overview at the top. Take me straight to the articles. Okay? Take me straight to the confirmed sources. I don't want to see the AI. But let me read some of this. The House approved an act to enforce the provisions of the 14th Amendment to the Constitution of the United States and for other purposes, also known as the Ku Klux Klan Act, introduced by H.R. 320 on March 28, 1871. You're not about to use no 1871 against nothing. Okay. It says, after nearly a week of heated debate in the House and the Senate, the chamber reconciled their differences on April 20th when the House agreed to the conference report on H.R. 320 and the Senate concurred. The Klan Act, the third in a series of increasingly stringent enforcement acts, was designed to empower the federal government to protect the civil and political rights of individuals. They're trying to say that they're trying to protect the civil rights of the church, calling the protesters the Klan. The 14th Amendment, ratified in 1868, defines citizenship and guaranteed due process and equal protection of the law to all, including 4 million formerly enslaved Black men and women. Vigilante groups like the Klan, however, freely threatened African Americans and their white allies in the South and undermined the Republican Party's plan for Reconstruction. They weren't just in the South. The Klan Act made it a federal crime to deny any group or individual any of the rights, privileges, or immunities or protections named in the Constitution. So it goes on and on and on. Baby, they pulling out all hey, this y'all, Lord, it's y'all. So again, this is just the beginning. We watching, but I wanted to make sure y'all were aware And to me, y'all, this adds into my theory that that we being flagged because they got eyes and ears everywhere, honey. But we gonna keep on keeping on. Let me know what y'all think about it though. Yeah, I don't know what's gonna happen. Maybe you do. Happy to chat about it. You can find me at Canelia on social media. I meant to bring this up on my earlier conversation about MLK, and this is not necessarily related to him, but it's adjacent. There was this tweet or post or thread that went viral, rather, and it asked a specific question, and it said, based on where we are today in this climate, with who is in power and what is going on, what is one thing, event, or person that you would point to say this was the catalyst that started the domino effect that got us right here? Right? People were naming all kind of stuff. Some people were saying it was Al Gore not challenging the vote count when he ran for president in 2000, right? Him not standing up and demanding that recount and finding them stolen ballots in Florida got Bush in, and now we're here. Some people were saying it was y'all's boy coming down that escalator, that escalator that set it off. People were naming a lot of recent things, right? And my response to this, I said, low key, if we're being honest, we can take this all the way back to John Wilkes Booth, the man who assassinated Abraham Lincoln. Now, I would have said, and the reason why I did not say point to an event or person earlier is because I do not recall and did not have time to research the specific captain of the ships who brought the first set of Africans to the Americas. I did not know that man's name. So I jumped forward and pointed to John Wilkes Booth. So y'all think about it. What would y'all say is the single catalyst that got us right here? The event, the person, the thing, whatever. And this is why I say John Wilkes Booth. While Abraham Lincoln, we know who the real Abraham Lincoln is. We don't have the romanticized idea about where he freed the slaves. No, he did, but he did not do it because he thought that we were deserving of our freedom. He did it to destabilize the American South. He also, for a consistent amount of time, where he was exploring options and had people help him to explore options on how to and where to ship all of the black people. At one point, he wanted to move us all to Panama. So he did not do this because he genuinely thought from a humane level that that's what should be done. It was about property and destabilization. But even with that, at the very least, with the 40 acres and a mule and the ideas around reconstruction, it would have at least set the tone and forced people to attempt to have a mentality that would not have trickled down to where it is today. Deeper example. John Wilkes Booth assassinates Abraham Lincoln. Now, correct me if some of these facts are wrong. If some of these are wrong, fact check me, please. So I'm gonna give allegedly. We're gonna give a rough estimate based on what I recall. It's been a long time since I was in history class in high school. Okay. John Wilkes Booth is assassinated. Andrew Johnson becomes the president. Andrew Johnson was not aligned with Abraham Lincoln, did not have the same thoughts about 40 acres and a mule, did not have the same thoughts about Reconstruction. And I'm going to read this pieces of this so you can get a gist of it. Johnson favored quick restoration of the seceded states to the Union without protection for the newly freed people who were formerly enslaved, as well as pardoning ex-Confederates. This led to conflict within the Republican Party dominated by the U.S. Congress, because back then they were the Republicans. I'm going to continue on. Johnson implemented his own form of presidential reconstruction, a series of proclamations directing the seceded states to hold conventions and elections to reform their civil governments. Southern states returned many of their old leaders and passed black codes to deprive the freedmen of many civil liberties. Congressional Republicans refused to seat the legislators from those states and advanced legislation to overrule the Southern action. Johnson vetoed their bills, and congressional Republicans overrode him, setting a pattern for the remainder of his presidency. He opposed the 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, which gave citizenship to former slaves. 1866, he went on an unprecedented national tour promoting his executive policy, seeking to break Republican opposition. And so on and so on and so on. To me, I point to John Wilkes Booth because when John Wilkes Booth did what he did and Andrew Johnson took over, that immediately gave people the impression in this country that still continues on to today, 2026, in 1866, he gave people the impression that they would not be punished for their crimes. They will not be punished for rebelling against the United States government. You could now terrorize Black people freely without consequence. You do not have to compensate people for the brutality that you subjected them to for hundreds of years. You can just be bad and nothing happens. If there was some kind of punishment back then, while it may not have been foolproof, I feel like it at least would have set the tone to say, you can't try that shit over here. Because let's get, even with the Black Codes, y'all know what the Black Codes was? The start of terror on Black people. So my point to look at when it comes to how do we get here now? What is the one event that led to this? John Wilkes Booth. Thanks for nothing. Let me know y'all thoughts though. If you could point to one thing, what would it be? You can find me at Kennelia on social media. On this week's episode of Black News, we reflected on Martin Luther King Day and what it means at this point in time in our history and what we're planning to do in honor of his legacy moving forward. We gave another quick update about what is happening in Minnesota and also the recent developments around Don Lemon and how now he's being attacked as an independent journalist. And lastly, I asked a trending question from social media in regards to what single event or person or action could you point to that would predict or show why we are in the situation we are in today. Let me know your thoughts about all these topics, Summer None, and I'll check back with you guys next time. That's it for this week's episode of Black News, y'all. Thanks again for supporting the podcast by sharing, liking, subscribing, and rating 5 stars on your favorite podcast app. To find more information about me, you can check me out at Kennelia on social media, as well as on my website, which is kennelia.com. And as always, thanks for supporting, and I'll be back next week with new topics and a new episode.